Hello and welcome to the first episode of the AFSCME District Council 36 podcast. I am your host, Daisha. This podcast has been something that we have been interested in for a while now, and we are really excited to finally get things going. On today's episode, I will be sitting down with Council 36's political intern and Council 36's representational intern. We will be discussing young people's involvement in the labor movement and in unions. But first, I just want to mention that the election is a few days away. Yes, November 3rd is just a few days away. So if you have not already voted, make sure you get out and vote. And we also have a voter guide on the Council 36 website. That's www.afscme36.org. You can find our entire 2020 voter guide. It is extremely important that we elect leaders who are going to stand up for working people. Next, I would like to give a huge shout out to one of our members, Justo Franco. Justo was nominated for the AFSCME Never Quit Service Award. He is a member of Local 3634, and he is a transit operations supervisor for LA Metro. AFSCME has an incredible story about him on their website, and it's very interesting to read, and we love highlighting our members and the hard work that they do. Our communities would not be possible without all of you guys' hard work. So shout out to you, Justo, and keep up the good work. Now, let's bring on the interns. So I am joined today by two lovely ladies. For those who do not know, Council 36 has brought back their internship program. So these are two of our interns. Let's go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Sure. Hi, my name is Sarah Baruch. I am the political intern with AFSCME District Council 36, and I've been an intern with them since early September.
Hi, I'm Rachel Shareem. I am the representation intern with AFSCME District Council 36, and I have been working with y'all since the beginning of October.
Okay, and so are you guys both currently students or recently graduates?
I'm a recent graduate from UCLA.
Okay, and Rachel?
I'm a recent graduate from UCSC.
Oh, okay. And are both of your degrees in what you're doing internships for now, or something different?
Mine is, I studied political science and sociology.
I did similar legal studies and psychology.
Awesome. That's really good to hear. Okay, so what drew both of you to the labor movement and labor unions?
Yes, Sarah speaking. I grew up in Los Angeles and attended public schools all throughout. And so UTLA definitely played a huge role in my upbringing and my understanding of labor unions. It seemed like, we were always striking or fighting for something, teachers always be stepping out in order to handle those issues. So it was definitely an issue that was tied to my education as far as getting the resources that we needed as students, and also as our understanding that our educators were also in this process of fighting for what they needed in order to be our educators. And then when I went to UCLA, AFSCME actually represents folks at UCLA. So it seemed like AFSCME just definitely played a role in my understanding of labor unions in general. And that was at the time that I was really starting to understand how political power is developed. So kind of seeing those two things come hand in hand together, also studying political science and getting involved in organizing circles myself, it all just kind of neatly came together. And that's why I decided to apply for the position with AFSCME District Council 36.
Awesome. Rachel?
Yeah, I think I was like 14 or 15 when I started to, notice like some people around me whose, their wages weren't really helping them live the happiest lives that they could live. And I started getting into documentaries. One of them being Sweatshop. It's like a documentary where people go, or these fashion bloggers go to actual sweatshops and see how clothes that they're like wearing and advertising are being made. And from that point on, I think, I realized that there was an issue with with workers' rights, there's workers' rights issues and like standards that need to be upheld. And from that point on, I did like more research and realized like, oh, there's actual communities and groups that are like fighting for workers' rights, like unions, and from that point on, I was like, okay, I want to be a part of that change. Let's, how can I do that? And yeah, that's it.
Awesome. So Sarah, going back to you really quickly, dealing with like the UTLA strikes, how was that like being a student in the classroom? One day your teacher's there, next day your teacher's out on strike. Kind of how was that
Yeah, I
experience?
mean, obviously there was a change in my understanding from like being in elementary school from being in high school. So it was definitely a process of first trying to understand, like what a union was, why that was even something that we were talking about. But by the time I was in high school, I appreciated going to LAUSD schools because I think it's you don't get that in every school district. And so I think it was definitely an opportunity to learn and understand that these adults, these figures that you pay so much respect to, like they are struggling themselves and they are finding solidarity with each other in order to get what they need in order to do their job well. So it was definitely more of a learning experience in some ways than like some of the things that I was actually learning, knowing that they were dealing with these things outside of the classroom and the ways in which they were dealing with them, in order to develop their political power.
Yeah, definitely. I can definitely see that. So Rachel, dealing with the documentaries and dealing with sweatshops, did you ever see like the process or the formation of unions in those workspaces, or were there any discussions in those sweatshops about this?
Um, not exactly, because, well, yeah, I think if with sweatshops, it might be a little more complicated, unfortunately, especially ones that are in outside the U.S. But yeah, so it's not. It's a little more difficult. Um, but there were people who like they were fighting. They were communicating with like apparel companies and like H&M to get better contracts for the workers. So today we still see like the problem, right? But um, it kind of brought attention to the problem, which was nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so there is this, I want to say, misconception out there that young people are not into unions, aren't into the labor movement, that's what our older generations did, and now we have no need for them anymore. So do you guys think that that's true?
When you sent us this question ahead of time, I actually laughed a bit because I can definitely I know that the idea is out there, and I think it's kind of grouped in with this understanding of like millennial, Gen Z, everyone's spending their money frivolously, and I just think it's so funny because young people are really the only people that I see engaging in organizing spaces in a real way. It's my friends that are my age that are concerned about how much they should tip when they go out to eat, and are concerned about like whether or not they should be buying local versus if they should be buying something from Amazon. I don't hear those conversations with people that are older. So with that and just all the political engagement that I've seen recently, all the creative ways that young people have taken it upon themselves to phone bank from home, to just really get involved again in organizing spaces that prioritize the needs of working class people. I understand where the like misconstrued ideas are coming from, but it's very frustrating just because my lived experience is just the opposite.
Yeah, I completely agree. Especially with the introduction or the use of technology and social media, that's definitely helped at least like me get involved more so. It's helped me get involved in protests and um, just understanding more and educating myself as well. So I definitely have seen like the chain of events when somebody will post something on Instagram and then um, and then it'll like, be reposted several times, and that'll increase the engagement drastically. So yeah, I definitely agree.
Yeah, I do as well. I think for me personally, um, one coming from a previous job that I did not like and could definitely see the benefits of having a union in that space. Um, that kind of opened my eyes more to what the labor movement was, and everybody who worked there were young people, right? So this idea that young people don't need labor unions anymore, that the older generations handle that, it's done, we don't need it anymore. Uh, it's funny and fascinating to me because it's like, okay, younger people still are dealing with these issues and they're definitely needed, even still
In some
today.
ways, I think a lot of the work that older generations have done, in our with Prop 22, for example, we're seeing the ways in which these protections have been or can be and have been unraveled so quickly. So I think younger people are really on top of this idea that there isn't the same job security that there was before, and we're living through a global pandemic. Like, of course these issues are still present, if not more so. So I think it's just funny to think that we learn about the movement as if it's something in the past and dealt with, and now everything's fine, when it's so clear that it's the opposite.
Right.
Is
Exactly.
a
Exactly.
little frustrating, to watch, but I think also inspiring to see that young people have such a commitment to wanting to make things better for themselves and for the generations to come.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, in this discussion about the need for, labor unions still today, what do you guys hear from your peers and, your fellow classmates and peers in the workplace, or just in your personal life? What have you kind of heard from them about this?
Um, I think most of my peers and friends, they definitely, this is Rachel speaking, by the way. Definitely, most of my friends and peers definitely care about the labor movement. Um, I just think that sometimes they do struggle with how to really fully engage in the movement in some way. Because it could be, depending on, where you are and your current situation, it could be difficult to fully get involved. Um, but that doesn't mean that it's not, that, they're not engaging in the ways that they can. Um, but yeah, I know for myself, to get involved in labor rights movement, it was quite difficult in the beginning. Um, so I think but there are ways to, go out to protest, or, just engage with people online, or, just kind of make your voice heard in some way. Is it really important, even if you're not directly involved in the movement. Um, but I think, yeah, the care is there, but yeah.
Yeah, I definitely repeat the idea that the care is there. I like that. But I also agree that, you know, I think as you were talking about earlier, Rachel, there's social media has obviously its pros and cons. The pros from organizing and movement building being that, it's easy to get information out. So whether it be protests or phone banking, or letter writing, there are all these advertisements almost about like ways to get involved, which is really exciting and awesome. I haven't necessarily seen labor take advantage of, um, those spaces in the same way that I've seen other movements, do that. So I think that may explain why younger people aren't necessarily, seeing labor necessarily as the issue that's going to bring everyone together. I think also with pay not always being the best as a young person, sometimes there is frustration. And I've talked to some of my friends about, obviously they understand how important the union is, but it's hard to, especially if you're opting in to send dues when your paycheck is already so small, and you don't necessarily have benefits, to to kind of trust that the money that you're sending in is going to do the work that you need to do, or that needs to be done rather. That it can especially be challenging for young people. Um, yeah, I think that that probably sums it up.
Yeah, I completely agree that, you know, bringing the labor movement and unions to a younger audience can be difficult. One, because you're talking about people who may not even be in the workforce, right? How do you talk about what's happening in the workplace to people who technically don't have a workplace, right? So how do you bring that sort of information to them? And then on the other note, yeah, how do we, I don't want to say change the labor movement, but how do we create a space for younger people in the labor movement in a way that they want to understand it and participate in it, right?
Yeah.
Um, and you see movements like the, you know, the $15 movement, you know, and people, a lot of people say, well, those are, you know, McDonald's workers. They don't need $15. Oh, that's for college students, or that's for high school students, as if high school students don't deserve to have, you know, a livable wage, right? They may be living at home, but eventually they're going to go out into the world and live on their own. So they do need that. Um, so, in your guys' opinion, how do you see this labor movement moving forward? How do we bring the labor movement to younger people in a way that'll make them want to get more involved and understand?
Um, I think my thoughts of where we are politically are, that traditionally you've seen movements that have revolved around one group of people or one identity, and then moving. I think what has made recent political movements so different is the fact that it's, and maybe even more powerful, is that you see groups of people that maybe don't necessarily have the same lived experiences, but understand that they are more powerful if we join together. I'm thinking of Bernie's campaign, of Warren's campaign, of just kind of the movements that we've seen recently, where people, again, that aren't necessarily, working in the same place, or maybe this isn't the best answer. Um, no, I think just the idea that movements can and should work together and figure out ways to be inclusive is a really important idea.
I think um, I think one of the biggest factors, at least what I noticed amongst myself and some of my peers, is that just having some of the older generation show that our presence is that the younger generation's presence is important in the fight and in the labor rights movement. um, I think has been really important for me and my peers. um, I went to like an organizing school and like session, I guess, and we um, we discussed like it was held by these two gentlemen who are I want to say like 50s, 60s, and there was a lot of younger people in the group, and they kept kind of informing us that that we are important, and that we're gonna add and continue on to this change that's needed. And that kind of made me realize, like, okay, yeah, like I need to be involved now, so then I can also inform the younger generation when it's my time that they're also important, and it kind of creates this sense of an ongoing cycle.
Yeah. And I think intersectionality is important to the labor movement, especially when you're talking about people who may not be in the workforce. Um, Showing them that, you know, things that are happening over here can affect you here as well, um, is important to getting them involved. And I think a lot of young people are activists and are involved in other social justice movements and economic justice movements. So, you know, us in the labor movement and the labor unions combining all of those things together can definitely open, you know, younger people's eyes to what's happening and definitely want them to get involved. And, you know, I think that's important. I think that can happen.
I like what Rachel said, especially about giving younger people the chance to get involved and to have their decisions be taken seriously. Because I think in terms of competing interests, I think that's probably where the biggest issue lies, is that in other spaces, it is younger people that are leading those movements and those organizations, or whatever that space looks like. So, if younger people, if the options are between, this space where you feel like you're going to be heard, and your experiences are going to matter and people are going to listen to you, versus, you might be able to get a word in here and there, but at the end of the day, there's no space for younger people, then I think there's going to continue to be a frustration. So I think it's definitely important that, and it is conflicting again, because unions listen to their members, and so sure, younger people do probably make up, a significant part of that, but if the labor movement wants to see more of young people, they have to create a space, and be serious about listening to their concerns and prioritizing them as well.
Yeah, and I think that is why internship programs are important, right? Giving young people a foot in the door, right? And hopefully that can turn into actual full-time jobs and large roles in these labor unions and in these spaces, because hey, this is not this is not only going to be the older generation's job. Eventually it's going to be our job. And so we have to start now, right? It can't be once we're 30, 40 years old, then all of a sudden now we're involved. No, it has to start now. It has to start hopefully even younger than me, um, and hopefully eventually, yeah, we can turn this thing into something even more powerful than before, right? In your roles now as interns, what kind of work have you guys been doing or learning or excited to learn in your roles?
I there's a number of things that we do on the political end of unions.
Yeah, you guys are busy right now.
Yeah, it's a busy time, which is really exciting. There's definitely, every time Isabel and I get on the phone, there's definitely like a whole new array of situations and tasks to do, which is very fun. I like that there's a difference in what we're doing from week to week. But we are training phone bankers, getting people on the phone, calling people in unions to talk about who they should be voting for and who has union interests at heart. I actually have a lot of experience training phone bankers, so I'm glad that that's something that I've been tasked with doing. But I've also, Isabel's great in that she really does explain like what meetings are going on. She has me attend them so that I can kind of see what the conversations are looking like between union reps and workers. So it's attending meetings, it's phone banks, it's writing scripts, it's doing research on candidates. It's yeah, it's a lot of different things, and we've got only a few days until the election, so it's feeling like there's definitely a lot to get done, but yeah.
That sounds so exciting. It seems like you're really passionate, so it's really nice to like see
Oh,
how
thank you.
see somebody who's so passionate involved. Yeah. So far, I mean, I'm fairly new, so a lot of it so far is kind of like dipping my toes into it, just trying to see, trying to like set some organization in some aspects, and getting more comfortable with the process of what the representation side has. So like working with like hearing documents and kind of, yeah, I guess just so far it's just been a little bit of getting involved. It hasn't been too intense, but I've been organizing some like memorandum of understandings, and yeah, just trying to, I guess, still get a hold of everything so far.
What are some things that you're interested in learning as far as representation goes?
I'm really interested in learning about more so about the I guess the system of when a worker has, they want to go to court, or they want to file a grievance, and they want to have an investigation, the whole process. I really want to learn more about that, and it seems as if I am going to be learning more about that process with time, and hopefully become more involved within it. So I should be starting next week getting more involved in hearings, which is quite exciting. Yeah.
All right. All right. Thank you, ladies, so much. I appreciate you guys taking the time to join me for our first ever podcast. I think it went pretty well, especially for the first time. And I think that the labor movement is in great hands. So I hope that we will see a lot more from you guys in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's it for episode 1 of the Council 36 podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.